welcome to Game Brain, a board game podcast about our gaming group. I am your host, Tom Donnelly. I'm here with Trey Alsop. We got a power duo today. How you doing, Trey?
I'm doing good. I'm part of a power duo?
Yeah. You and I together, formidable.
We've been together a long time, you and me, Tom.
We've been together a long time. College and grad school. And, well, we could tell more about that, but we won't. Not for this podcast.
No.
We've known each other very, very long time.
Hi, everyone.
We know each other's weaknesses, our foibles, our strengths. We can almost finish each other's sandwiches. That's correct. Sandwiches. We have got...
You know how to annoy me.
Yeah, well...
That was a great example right there.
Everybody knows how to annoy you, Trey.
Yeah, it's not hard.
It is super easy. You began your curmudgeon journey early. I mean, really, you were a savant in that field.
I hope our listeners can just hear how invested Tom is in this theory.
Oh, it is. It's. Is there anybody offering a counter theory?
I'm enjoying life so much. I really am. So I am a creature of light and joy. I don't know what you're talking about.
All right. Well, then let's spoil a little what we're going to be talking about today, because we're going to be talking about a game that we enjoy very, very much. We're going to be talking about The White Castle. All right. Sliders, onion rings.
I wasn't going to go there. But you will.
Because
in America,
it's a bit of a branding issue.
Okay, well, don't let that get in the way of enjoying this wonderful, tasty game.
Yes, if they name the game in the United States Himeji Castle, boom, done, no problem. But you tell people we're going to play the White Castle.
It does have certain expectations.
It does. It's like is this a Harold and Kumar, product? Are we going to be?
I never saw that. I am aware of the title.
Did you really?
Really, I never saw it. Yes. Why would I see that?
They're quick. They're really good.
Oh, okay. I stand corrected. You know what? When you're an old man, Tom.
I guess so. I would say they did 3 of them. I enjoyed all 3 of them thoroughly. But listen. You go for the stoner humor. You stay for Neil Patrick Harris. All right, Neil Patrick Harris, and this was...
Did not even know he was in it.
Not only is he in it, but the Neil Patrick Harris we know and love today would not exist without Harold and Kumar. Because he was, when Harold and Kumar came out, he was still, he was that Doogie Howser guy, whatever happened to him? And his performance in these movies, and in the first one in particular, is so freaking off the wall, outrageous, amazing, that it was a Renaissance. He was back, baby, and he has gone off of that. I believe I may be wrong, but I think it was before How I Met Your Mother. But maybe it isn't. Maybe I'm wrong about that. But I think he did this before How I Met Your Mother.
There was a time on Game Brain where we would do show notes and we would know like what was coming on the show.
Yeah.
I think this is a good example of...
you didn't know we were going to be talking about NPH?
I did not know this is where we were going to go with the show.
NPH is a national treasure. All right? You need to go...
Best thing about Starship Troopers.
The best thing about Starship Troopers, no question about it. It's afraid!
He understood the tone of that movie.
He completely understood. I might even argue dictated the tone of that movie. It is.
I'm a fan.
Amazing. Yeah,
I'm a fan.
Yeah. Then guess what? Treat yourself. This weekend, go watch the first one. I'm not going to make you watch all 3 of them. Watch the first one and see if you're not way more than pleasantly amused.
Maybe the reason it is called The White Castle is this is from the same dezgners who recently did
the Red
Cathedral.
Yeah. And if we had a burger chain called Red Cathedral,
Neil Patrick Harris would.
I would have a similar conversation with where I would be talking about the problems with that. Okay, but before that, let's talk about
what would the Red Cathedral serve on its menu.
Oh, you kidding me? It'd be fish sandwiches with
borscht
with caviar. Yeah, it would have a side of borscht, potato latkes.
Let's please engage in some more ethnic stereotypes. I started it though. I'm not
sure Russians and ethnicity. It's borderline.
Okay,
it's borderline. Right. It's a cuisine. It's a country. It's an area. Games that are on our brain, because Trey, you and I, in 2 or 3 short weeks, are going to be in Dallas.
That's right. BGG-Con coming up.
Yep. Yeah, you, me, Candace, we're going to have ourselves a ball.
Our good friend Mark now will be there.
Yep.
I'm also going to be attending the Tabletop Network ahead of time.
Yes.
It's back.
Please explain to people that did not hear our previous podcast about that, what exactly that is.
I don't know. I think the format's changing a little bit this year, but this is kind of a little bit of like a game designer industry person mini retreat before BGG-Con that Tim Fowers and company kind of have put together. So it's like just 2 days of panels, but also it's like some game design exercises.
I think it sounds fantastic.
Yeah, to kind of do some networking, do some design exploration, hear from some people on specific topics. So a lot of fun.
Yeah, I love hanging out with Tim. He's a lot of fun. The people that he has around him are a lot of fun as well. I came in the last time on the last day of that event and actually got to sit in on like one or two panels. I thought it was fantastic, and you were beaming. Like you were energetically. More often than not, I'm gonna be the one that's like at an 8 or higher
because I'm an old man,
and you're gonna be okay. I'm that with most people.
Okay,
I tend to be a very high energy.
You're
energy
loud,
dude. I'm high energy, Trey.
Right,
not loud. High energy. But
what I have found is that like these type of almost whether they're networking events or whatever, but anytime I've been able to go to kind of a 3-day, 4-day. Panel, I mean, not panel, but any of these kind of like get-togethers of creative people always just give me a ton of ideas, give me a ton of energy. You end up making friendships that end up, helping out over years, and not even in like a self-serving way. It's just like you expand your network, you get influences of things that you weren't thinking about before. It's like there's just no downside to meeting new people, new creative people, hearing their ideas, and kind of. It always gives me energy. It always gives me ideas. It's always like the best money that I can spend.
Yeah, and you it obviously showed.
Say yes.
You were boosted. You were up. I came in early, and you said, "Oh, let's meet at this breakfast diner sort of place that's a very short walk, super short walk from the place."
Hotel. Yeah,
and I went there first, waiting for you guys to come out and meet me. And in front of this place was the most QAnon truck that has ever existed. It was at the time the Dealey Plaza, which is right next door. The QAnon people had it in their minds that JFK Jr. was not dead,
and
but still very much alive, and was going to return, and was going to have a big appearance at Dealey Plaza. They were,
for those who don't know, Dealey Plaza is where
JFK got shot.
Was assassinated.
That's right.
Grassy Knoll,
still
there.
Texas Book Depository,
still there.
These are important sites there.
I think it's still there.
It was crazy how many people were there, and the organizers of this event were staying in the same hotel that we were in.
I know.
We got to catch a little glimpse of it every once in a while. Like, oh my god!
Whether it's a coincidence or not, I do remember getting into an elevator at that con, and Ken Starr got into the elevator with me. So I don't know if he was there for JFK Jr.'s return, but
I didn't see him playing Terra Mystica.
I do not think he was there for BGG-Con.
I didn't see him doing that, so I'm gonna go. That guy's
BGG-Con is still like such a wonderful con because it's just board games.
Yes,
and I think it's the best con I've ever known for. If you just want to go and play board games, they make it so easy for that to happen. Yeah. Right? Like even like we struggle with this a little bit when we do our local con, is that we just, a lot of times end up playing with each other. So like, what's the point?
Yep, a little bit.
BGG Con, you can go as a complete stranger. You will be able to find games. Yeah. You want to play a certain game, you can express interest. The game will happen. You will wander around. You'll see people looking for players for certain games. You can kind of sit down and play. Everything there is kind of streamlined for making games happen really easily, and they have huge amount of space, huge amount of games, the biggest, best game library I've got to think anywhere. For finding that game that you've always wanted to play, It's there, and it can happen, and you will make new friends there.
If you are listening to this and you're going to be coming to BGGCon, please come find us. We will be most of the time in the post.
Yeah, look for the guys in the toothpaste colored shirts.
In the toothpaste colored shirts, and the hot games area is probably going to be to some greater or lesser degree our dojo.
I'm curious to see I wonder if a list is out of that yet. Have how many of those games have we already played? But
I mean, I'm sure that they're going to have Kuda. I'm sure they're going to have Rats of Wistar. I'm sure they're going to have Evacuation.
Okay,
which I think I will have played Evacuation by the time I go there, because our own Ben Mandelker has got his copy of that in there. And
all of our connections are coming through.
I have an invite to go play Evacuation with Ben, and I can't wait. I'm really,
all right. It's interesting.
Really
I did not get that invitation. Okay.
Well,
you know what? He probably wants someone youthful,
energy.
Right?
That's what it is. Yeah.
Trying out.
Yeah. Listen, when
you're an older person, Evacuation means something different.
It most certainly does. And generally, when we go there, we get Candace and Matt, and we take them out, and we go, and you usually have your car there, and so
I do.
We go out and we get some good eats.
Mm-hmm.
Power down. Have some
this year. I think we're going to try to go to Meow Wolf Grapevine.
Yep,
check that out.
Yep, absolutely.
I've done that in New Mexico and had a great time.
Looking forward to it. Yeah, there's a lot of good food in Dallas, actually, so it's not so bad. It's going to be fun. Very much looking forward to that. Andrew Ryer, Andrew, New Jersey Andrew.
Yeah, sure.
Yes, of
Yes,
course.
Andrew.
Yes. He got a chance to play some of the new hotness. He's got a friend that runs PAX Unplugged, or is one of the people who does PAX Unplugged, and he says Rats of Wistar is going to be one of our games.
Okay.
It's a Simone Luciani and another designer, so not that much of a stretch.
A must try.
But yes. He says the only thing is Trey may get very AP.
Is that what he said?
No, he just said AP. It's an AP prone game if you're playing it. I may have editorialized a little bit there,
right?
But do you know what the game is? Do you know the basic idea of the game? It's hyper intelligent rats escape.
Secret of Nim. Not exactly. No,
rats escape from a rat lab. And
Secrets of Nim,
and them and their family are trying to establish a new society, and they're going out and foraging. And
I'm making a cultural reference that old people will understand. The Secrets of Nim.
I've seen the animated movie. It's a Don Bluth.
Okay, yeah,
right, yeah.
From the 70s.
From the 70s, yeah. It's a little Secrets of Nim.
Those were intelligent rats.
Yeah, I guess.
No, they were experimented on at NIM. That's the big secret.
That's
NIM.
the big what it
National
is,
Institute of Mental Health.
Yeah.
NIM. That's the Secrets of NIM.
That's what it is.
They were experimented on and had their intelligence boosted.
So for all of you that were starting to write down Secrets of NIM, you might as well erase that right now.
Spoilers. Spoiler alert, late.
Might as well.
Retroactive spoiler.
Just erase that because...
So you had your chance to see Secret of NIM.
No point. The game looks good. The game looks really good. I'm looking forward to playing it. It's got all sorts of little bits to it. Like you can play it as a hand management game. You could play it as a worker placement game. You could play. The one thing that might bump for us is the exploration mechanic, which invariably every exploration mechanic is to some degree going to have a degree of randomness that we might find off-putting or we might not. But it only takes 15 turns. The whole game is 15 turns long, which seems to be a design choice that more and more designers are kind of going to. We might discuss something today that has a very limited number of actions in the entire game.
Nine actions in the entire game.
9
in White Castle.
I see your 15 Rats of Wistar, and I go under you. I make it 9.
Tom, I may have a reputation of being anti-dice. Or anti-randomness.
Well,
I like to think that I am for the appropriate use of chance in games.
I have said many times, Trey, that you are not a strict. You are not strictly diceophobic. You are selective.
I own dice.
So
some of my best friends are dice.
There are certain circumstances in which dice are properly used. When we played, for instance, Crystal Palace, you were like, "This is a good use of dice.
Yep.
This is the proper use of dice." I think Trois, you said, yeah,
Crystal Palace, your dice aren't even rolled.
no, correct,
They're a tracking mechanism.
correct. They're not even really dice in that sense. But Trois, you said this is a great way to use.
Pretty
dice.
good. Yep, pretty good.
Yep. Makes sense. It's input randomness that
That's right.
and the game is adjusting to that randomness.
You know what game also uses input randomness?
What game also uses input randomness?
White Castle. The White Castle.
The White Castle. Is that the original franchise? Is that the first one? We're gonna move on. Let's get into it. Like let's start talking about this game, because what we'll also talk about is because you will hear in our review of this game that we found this game to be incredibly elegant, really, really elegant. We're going to talk a little bit about elegance. We've talked about it before, but Trey and I have our top 10 most elegant games, and we're going to go over that and why they are.
Yeah, maybe we'll talk
means.
a little bit about what we mean.
Yeah, of course.
You know, why I think this game is elegant.
Yeah, DYT, define your terms. Okay, should we start with elegance? Why not?
Sure.
Why not? This is an elegant game. Why is this an elegant game? To me,
Yeah, you go first.
do you want me to go first?
Wow, sure.
All right.
Yep.
To me, elegance is the ratio of depth of play to the lightness of the rule set and mechanisms of the game. It's how deep can the game be while at the same time being incredibly simple. Right? That's elegant.
Yeah, it's almost like a mathematical equation where you've got the ask as the numerator and the number of mechanisms as the denominator, or something like that. And a lot of times games that I describe as elegant have a lot of game to them with, frankly, like a very simple rule set that often have very deep decision spaces.
Yes.
Now, that said, we're not talking about abstract games.
No, though, abstract games
Go
often are.
is incredibly, yeah. I mean, abstract games tend to be extremely elegant, but I also tend to not really want to play them. Like, I'm not going to play a lot of chess. I'm not going to play a lot of Go. There was a time in my life where I wanted to, and I did play a lot of chess as a kid. So it's not really what I'm looking for anymore. So maybe it's not even just, this isn't just like a weight consideration.
Right.
Also, like, sometimes it may also be, I think it's okay to weave theme a little bit in there too, of like, does this game almost like tell a simple story? Like, does the recipe of what goes into it produce a fully baked kind of like game where everything just ends up being cohesive?
Yeah. Elegant games completely understand the assignment. They know exactly what they are, and they deliver that experience in a very, very pure, very, very deep way. And I love that about it. Now, my favorite games in the world, some of them are elegant games, some of them are not elegant games. Vital Lacerda couldn't design an elegant game to save his life, because he designs complicated clockworks. And those are amazing. And by the way,
let me disagree slightly.
Let me just say, I just want to clarify. What I'm saying is that I actually think his games are incredibly elegant.
Right.
But in the way we're using that, and the way we're using that term, which is kind of simplicity to depth, that's not his style. That's not his design.
Yeah, when we're talking about elegance, almost by definition, we are not talking about the heavier weight games. It's harder.
Complexity.
Yeah, complexity.
Yeah.
Now, I think that Lacerda is, like, one of the things that makes him great is that his games are elegant for the level of complexity.
Yes.
Like, I think The Gallerist is pretty elegant.
Amazing. Yeah.
It's still not a quick teach.
No.
There's still a lot of stuff kind of like going on there. It kind of integrates in a way that I feel is pretty elegant. But
I think what you were saying about theme is right. Like he put an elegant theme on that game that makes as complicated as it is easy to understand, because it all ties in.
That's right. Perfect. So let's play that example out. In The Gallerist, you are playing the owner of a gallery, and the actions, like, there's 4 different types of actions that you can do in the game, and those 4 actions end up being like the 4 things you do as a gallery owner, right?
Yeah.
Like that thematically, those things are strong. There's plenty of other games we play sometimes where your action might be, well, I'm on my turn, I'm converting, 1 blue crystal into 3, purple diamonds or something.
Yeah.
And
the Trismegistus effect, as we've come to call it.
Right. That's like that is as an example in our brains, like Trismegistus in at least in my personal mythology is the opposite of elegance,
of thematic elegance.
And we do have a lot of games right now that have those kind of like conversions, multiple combos, steps where I'm turning A into B and B into Z, to kind of how can we sequence together. Now, White Castle has some heavy combos, but like does the theme of what's happening kind of like tell a narrative that makes sense so it feels organic in how you're doing it. Gallerist, for me, like it does that. I feel a little bit like a gallery owner where I'm making gallery owner decisions in order to win the game.
I mean, by what we're talking about, Thunder Road Vendetta, which you and I played, is actually quite an elegant game.
Yes, I'm a big fan.
It really is.
It has dice.
It has dice. It's got a lot of miniatures and moving parts and all sorts of stuff. But because it is purely trying to deliver this one experience, it understands the assignment, it knows exactly what it's trying to do, and everything in the game feeds to that. It's kind of an elegant experience.
I agree. I completely agree. It knows what it is. It plays quickly. Very fun.
Did we talk about Thunder Road Vendetta on the pod?
I think a little bit.
A little bit. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
It's a game that I think people would assume I wouldn't like, but for me, it's like, listen, there's dice rolling here. It's beer and pretzels. It's over in an hour. I didn't even care whether I won or lost. There were a lot of moments where we were pounding the table and yelling. Awesome. Like that's. It does what it's supposed to do. It knows what it is.
I could play this with kids. I could play this with teenagers.
Yeah.
I could play this with people that have never played a game before. I could play this with tabletop role-playing game enthusiasts that aren't really into the hobby. I could. It is a fun night.
So maybe the reason I wanted to talk about Elegance is because I'm a crusty old man.
Yes.
In that I think a lot of times
You're also very elegant.
Thank you, Tom. I just think like as I've played more board games.
Yes.
And experience more games, I value elegance more.
Yes.
I think we are in a time where we have identified, like in board game design, there has been a movement towards broke was kind of a term we were using, but like we're playing heavier games. We're playing more complex games.
Yeah.
A lot of times there's a lot of joy in learning these systems.
Yeah.
Okay. Like,
but for a much smaller audience, the more you need to learn the system, the smaller the audience is that experiences joy in that.
That's right. But I would assert that there is kind of like a bias against lower weight games. Elizabeth Hargrave and some other people have identified like there is bias in the BGG reviews towards higher complexity. And I think like you can see that in the ratings now on BGG, which they've tried to de-emphasize, but a lot of the games that like we have on our list here, maybe like our top 10 elegant games, like a lot of these I just consider classics. Like these are games that everyone should play that are kind of like eternal. And some of them, a lot of them are older, but they're also like games that used to be like number 1 on BGG or in the top 10.
Yep.
And now they're like falling out of the top 100. So like, is it just that there's so many better games being made now? It's like, no, not really. I mean, there's both score inflation, but there is like, there has been statistics that show that people just tend to rate more complex games as better games. And maybe that's a way of kind of like showing that you're sophisticated as a gamer. I don't know, but it's there. It's there in the data.
I mean, you buy a game like Red Cathedral and you've spent $20. Like how hard, like what is the social pressure?
It's not that cheap, is it?
But it's pretty cheap.
It's cheaper. The great thing about Red Cathedral and the White Castle is these are small box.
Yeah.
Almost doesn't fit into the box, but small box games.
What is the monetary social pressure to stand super hard for that game? Whereas you buy Deluxe Voidfall,
you've made an investment.
You better love it. You better be
it's an identity game
out there. I mean, to some extent, those types of games really are. They're games that are. You have to spend so much time to even understand what you're doing and to get good at it that you're kind of going to play that game and that game only a lot of people who are getting that game are going to be playing that game alone for a long time, and that's going to lead to a high score. If only for the Stockholm syndrome. It is going to pull you in and not let go of you, and that's just the nature of these things, I think, to some degree. Okay, I think we talked enough about what we mean about Elegance to get into White Castle.
Yes.
White Castle, as Trey said, only has 9 actions. It is a game that is set in 1761 in the Harima province. Harima is just west of Osaka and Kyoto and Kobe, where there is a very famous castle that is called the...
you have been there, the Himeji Castle.
I have not actually been to the
I thought that's where you played...
No, we did that at Osaka Castle.
Oh, excuse me.
No. Yeah. Himeji Castle, we went to Kobe, and Kobe to the Himeji Castle is only about another 20-minute train ride, maybe half hour. That's it. But we just didn't actually end up making it there. We went to the most amazing museum. We went to a Japanese woodworking museum in Kobe, and cool. I thought we were only going to spend a little bit of time there and we could get somewhere else, and it was amazing. This place was, we're walking inside little Japanese huts that were made. You're shaving, you're using the old school tools that they used hundreds of years ago and learning how to shave the wood and all that sort of stuff and the different kinds. It was amazing. Anyway, the Meiji Castle is the most visited historical site in Japan, the most visited castle in all of Japan. It is super, super famous.
It is a wonder in through the ages.
It is wandering through the ages. So think of it like Mount Rushmore. Or, think of it like Statue of Liberty. It's that kind of thing. It's a big, epic
cultural centerpiece.
And in 1761, it was the heyday of this era, and the daimyo is the lord who rules over this place. And guess what? We are advisors, and we are going there.
We're playing clans, right?
Correct. Yeah, actually, we're on the same clan. Are we in the Sakai clan?
Okay, maybe. I thought we were rival clans or something.
Yes. We're rivals, and we're trying to curry favor with the Sakai.
That's right. So, okay, pretty standard board game framing here. You're currying favor from the big, powerful person.
Yeah,
and so victory points are an expression of that favor.
Right. Now, you're saying, okay, sounds pretty typical Japanese, whatever. Does it have any...
Typical board game.
Does it do anything with the gameplay? It actually kind of does. Because when you divide the board up and you look at what the board really is, it's really about 3 different regions. There's outside the castle... there are these bridges that go over a little river, and that's where the
there's inside the what's the third one? There's outside the castle. There's inside the castle. What's the third?
And the third one is the samurai fields.
Your own board or
samurai fields?
The training grounds.
Yes.
Okay. I think you're right. You're right.
The training grounds. So there is a place, and you on your player board have 3 different types of people.
Can I do the mechanics pitch of this game?
Absolutely, I would love you to.
This is what would you call it? A dice action placement game.
Each of your 9 actions, you're taking 1 die and you're placing it.
That's right. And so when we say you are going to do this 9 times, you're going to place 9 dice and trigger 9 series of actions essentially in the game. And maybe like if I were pitching you this in the elevator, the coolest kind of like core mechanism in this game is that we have 3 different colored dice. We roll a certain number of dice based upon the number of players, and then you order these dice on 3 different bridges. So we have orange dice on the orange bridge, black dice on the black bridge, white dice on the white bridge, and they're ordered from low to high. When you take your die, you are taking from either the high end of the bridge or the low end of the bridge, and then taking an action with that die, where the pips essentially are the cost of doing business of whatever the action is. If I take a 6 and I place it on an action space that only requires 4, I'm going to make 2 extra money. If I took a 2 die and placed it on that same 4, I would have to spend 2 in order to do it. But one of the really cool things about it is so why wouldn't you just always take the high dice? Well, if you take from the left side of the bridge, which is the lower number of the dice set, you are also like triggering your own player board where you kind of have a number of bonuses built up over gameplay. So there's in a sense like compensation for taking the low die. And then out of that, so that in itself is kind of cool. Then once you get under the skin of the game, you realize, oh, the die I choose is going to cause a kind of like cascading sequence of actions where I'm creating opportunities for other people by doing this. And so a lot of depth starts to emerge about what die I take because it has a lot of repercussions later in the game. The board itself, as Tom was kind of alluding to, has an inside the castle, outside the castle, and kind of a farm area, and then the training grounds of military pieces. All of these are just action spaces. So there's a certain amount of worker placement here, although it's not as strict as something like Agricola, where a single worker goes to a space. Like every space here generally has a rule of 2 dice can go there. So again, like if you play a low die on a space, like you're actually creating an opportunity for the next person to come and make some money on that, because they can place a higher die on that number and get some extra money. Or if you place a high die, you're actually making it harder for someone else to go there because it's more expensive.
You're literally preventing the action from being taken in a lot of cases. Yeah.
So you're either kind of like, so the 3 different main things you're doing in placing these dice is you're taking these wooden figures from your board, meeples, but there's 3 different theme meeples, which are essentially like farmers, ambassadors, or warriors. They probably have a different name.
Courtiers, who are the ones that are going to the castle, the samurai who are going to the training grounds, and the farmers who are going over by the bridges and tending to the fields, etc.
That's right. And mechanically, each of these things has some slightly different effects. The farmers, which cost food to place, end up kind of giving you instant rewards, but also can be triggered multiple times in the game with some caveats.
Yeah, if the bridge they are next to still has dice on it at the end of the round, which is another one of those, just a small little interesting mechanism, right? Whereby, hey, I would really like to take this white die for this action, but if I take this red die, the red bridge won't have anybody on it anymore.
And Trey's farmers will be useless.
Trey's farmers will sit there and they will stew because they were counting on doing those actions again. Oh.
Let's ruin Trey's game. Yay!
Which, as you know, is my favorite mechanism.
Right back at you, buddy. When you place the courtiers or the ambassadors, whatever, in the castle itself, you're kind of like you're approaching the daimyo. The castle's in almost like a pyramid shape.
3 levels, three spaces on the lowest level, 2 spaces.
So you're kind of like you're getting closer as an ambassador to it, and like that's worth points. But you're also, one of the really interesting things about the placement of the ambassadors is that when you go and place them in one of the kind of like 6 areas within the castle, you're actually replacing the action card.
Yeah,
in that space, and then you get that action card.
Which, and remember, we said if you take the low die is going to give you an extra little boost. Well, the boost is the rewards that are on the back of all of the cards that you have taken over the course of the game. So
there's a certain amount, right? There's a certain amount of very cool things that are happening, which is, again, like if I'm going to relate this to like standard worker placement, like if you could actually lift a spot off the Agricola board and put it in your own player board that only you can do a little bit so far. Yeah. Again, you're going to be able to do it once, but then it gets replaced by something else. So the geography of the worker placement map is constantly shifting.
Yes. And the available dice are constantly shifting. Mm-hmm. And because when you play a die to the board, let's suppose there is a space that requires a 3 or higher die. You can play a 1 die there. You just have to pay $2 in order to take that space.
Yep.
But then that space is now a 1. And anybody can put any die on top of the 1.
Created a huge opportunity for somebody else.
And if I put a 6 there, I get 5 coins. Oh, so it's
and having money gives you a lot of freedom to take actions that you normally wouldn't be able to take.
Exactly. And in many cases is mandatory to do certain things. Like in order to put a courtier into the castle, you're going to have to pay a little bit at the gate just to get in the door. There are some spaces that create situations like that. There are also 3 resources in the game that we should talk about. Actually, there are about 5 resources, really, when you get right down to it. But every player board has got a little marker that is keeping track of how much rice you have. Mm-hmm. Rice is required for placing the farmers. Metal or steel or iron, whichever one it is, during this
gray
time.
Anvil. Yeah.
Yes, that is going to be required to place the samurai in the training fields, and Mother of Pearl. And the Mother of Pearl is going to be the main mechanism by which you advance your courtiers higher and higher into the castle.
This is a successful language independent game.
Very much so.
Like I don't think there's no text anywhere.
No text nowhere, and the iconography is really simple. So but
there was a few first play. There were a few looking at the back of the book kind of things
for a minute, because there's a few things that are a little more complicated. But 90% of what you're looking at the board after your first 3 actions in a 9-action game,
right?
You pretty much got it. Now the trick, the thing that you have to learn over time, is the intense interaction of things. That's the thing that's going to take a while to understand. To understand
the hidden depths.
Exactly. To understand how the basic game works, though, is easy as pie. I love the setup of the game, because the setup of the game creates very variable playing states
from the get-go.
Tremendously different.
This game handles player order by doing those who are going last get their first pick of like starting cards.
Yep.
So there's some compensation for going last there. That seems pretty balanced, if not like picking your setup cards may be more powerful than going first in the first turn. It's a tough thing to balance, but it's not unthought of.
Correct.
They've addressed it in a way
considered.
that's meaningful and is very considered. Let me describe the board really quick, if I can, because it's beautiful.
Yeah.
The board looks like a landscape, with the castle kind of dominating the center of the board as almost like a ziggurat or a pyramid, where you have like 3 areas, 2 areas, 1 area on top creates a space, and then we have training grounds to the east and the farms to the west. But it's all done in kind of like a painterly, almost like screen style, like that you would see on a wall of landscape and figures. And I think when you first look at it, it's visually beautiful. I think it probably is a little confusing when you're starting, but compared to some other games that we've seen, and as we described, like there's some basic iconography that you can pick up that's very manageable. It's not that the iconography isn't hard, but it is kind of like manageable. And in the end,
I will say something about that.
Yeah.
So they worked very hard to get this game in this small box.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
It has created 2 issues. Issue number 1 is that it takes some. It's like packing. It's packing the Prius for the long road trip.
Yeah,
it is a
packing up the game is a challenge.
You get an extra spatial solo puzzle game, trying to get everything back into the box in a way that will allow the box to close. That's number 1. Number 2 is that the board is probably 25% more compact than it should be. Like if you put this in a regular box and you had the more space and you were able to move the samurai fields a little bit farther away from the castle, and the castle itself, you could see the pyramid of the castle was a little more separated from everything else. I think you would look at the board and immediately get everything, but everything is packed in a little bit too much.
I think I don't know.
I think it's gorgeous.
Love this. I love this design. It's not too packed for me.
It's Japanese pastoral art style.
Yeah. So here's another selling point for the game. Not a tough teach. Once you do know the game, it can be a little AP prone, because you tend to, like, the way things work, you end up like linking actions together. That's where you kind of like, you have the potential for these super moves where you can place 2 or 3 figures on the board in the same turn sometimes. Yeah. But you're only going to take 9 actions in the entire game. And once people know the game, you absolutely can play this game in under an hour. So and I'm usually somebody who's kind of resistant to like the playing times that they put on the side of the box. Like, you really can play, like we played this game twice last night.
Yeah.
Kind of like we played this twice with a teach in the same time that 3 players who knew Nucleum played 1 game of Nucleum.
Yeah. So if figure 3-player game of this is 27 actions all total. If everybody takes 2 minutes to take their action, that's under an hour. And a lot of times
your action might be 5 seconds. Yeah.
I would say a third of the time your whole play is under 30 seconds for that turn, which allows you the 3-4 minute think where I got to figure out how do I do all the things that I want to do, and there are a number of ways to skin almost any cat in this game. It is a really, really interesting.
This is not Toledo.
No.
In that, I think you can plan.
Yes.
Fairly reliably.
Well, yes and no, and
I mean, the things will change. You're not just waiting to do your thing.
If I take this die, I ruin your plan. If I place a courtier and take this card off of the display, that ruins your turn. If I place a second die, thereby locking out that space so no one else can take it, that'll ruin your day. So there are some possibilities, but you're right. You're right in that it is a much more predictable space. You can kind of see things coming and see things that
I'll put it this way.
Yeah.
I found when it is not my turn, I am engaged.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, I'm both thinking about my move and I'm looking at what other people are doing. So maybe I'm thinking like, okay, he's probably going to take that die.
Yeah.
So what's my next choice here? It's like, oh, I've got some backup on that, with this action here in this space of the castle. Okay, he took the die. I thought, oh, and he took the card that I was kind of counting on there. So unlike, I think like your comment from Toledo, which I completely agreed about, was if you start investing that heavily on once the turn has passed from you, when you start investing that heavily, like you're just wasting your time. Like the game is going to change so radically before it gets around to you. It's almost a waste to even think about that. Whereas that's not the case here. It's kind of like it's a dynamic space that is shifting and you're paying attention to what other people are doing, especially because what other people do creates opportunities for you all the time.
Correct. And there are plays that can happen on your own board. Mm-hmm. So your board is inviolable, is going to be what it's going to be. Mm-hmm. And you are changing your board as you go. Every time you place a
wooden piece,
dude on the map, you are changing your board. Every time you are getting a card and adding it into your lantern area, that's the area where you're basically unlocking
your
extra
engine.
bits.
Yeah.
You're building an engine. And we've played games where lantern play has been a dominant factor in the game. We've played games where lantern play almost doesn't even factor in. We've played games where the well, which looks like a weak little spot that you would only do if you had nothing else to do, seems like there's no sense to it at all. Other setups, you look at it and you're like,
other times
oh my God.
opens these huge possibilities for you.
Yeah. So there is, so it's a tremendously variable space. And once you played the game one time, you kind of grok the game enough to be able to look at the board and kind of put together the puzzle of what is the whole variety of things that I could do and which of them is the best. Because when you have a really good turn, sometimes that really good turn is I'm going to take the lowest die on this thing that's going to unlock the lantern action, which is going to allow me to take these 4 things that are at the bottom of my player mat. Getting those 4 things
you feel clever
are then going to allow me
maybe you are clever.
Yes.
Yeah.
Then I'm going to use that die. I'm going to place it here. It's going to unlock another action that is then going to unlock another action. It's crazy.
I tend to like sequencing.
Yeah.
Like a lot of times the game is kind of broken into 3 different rounds where you take 3 dice each. And so those do tend to be clumps because like things happen at the end of the scoring, like the farms can score. So you tend to grok those into manageable 3 actions. And that sequencing I really enjoy that. Like I enjoy that in games, games where you're like sequencing your action of like, what's the right time for this? Like I really need to hold this off and it's going to be the third thing I do this round. Maybe it's my final action of the game. I'm setting up this one big thing,
if the board still allows that to happen.
Right. And maybe sometimes you have to gamble on it, but like that's a heavy like pleasure point for me as a player is sequencing. How long can I wait? Maybe again, like I'm going to relate this to a worker placement game like Agricola. In Agricola, sometimes it's a mistake. Like you need to renovate this turn.
Yes.
Or family grow.
Yeah.
But you kind of if you look at the other players, it's like, well, no one else can renovate. So I can wait till later. No one else can family grow. I can wait till later. And like we've seen when you're kind of teaching new people, they'll just go ahead and do the family grow, do the renovation right about. It's like,
no.
Dimitri.
If nobody else can do it.
Dimitri, wait.
If nobody can do it, take the action that other people.
So sometimes that happens a little bit here of like, that's really good for me, but I don't need to do it yet. What's actually contested?
Yeah.
Like that's the thing I have to fight over is the contested thing.
A good design is a design in which that there is no one dominant way to play. This is a game that's kind of like that. There is one thing I think you probably is non-negotiable, but let's sort of talk about scoring.
Okay.
The farmers, when you place a farmer down, it is going to give you an action immediately. And
It will be worth points at the end of the game.
At the end of the first round and at the end of the second round, you can take that action again as long as there are still dice on the bridge right next to where you're at.
That's right.
But in addition, it offers victory points at the end of the game, and those victory points
can be significant.
Can be 1 to 9, and 9 is a very good score. If you're getting 9 points from a single dude, that's pretty great. But when you talk about the samurai and when you talk about the courtiers, that's where the scoring can get really, really high, because what happens is there's a multiplication effect where there is going to be a score that you're going to get that is based on, first of all, the courtiers score points depending on how high up in the tower they get. So 3 points if they end up on the 1 point if they stay at the gate, 3 points if they're at the first level, 6 points if they're at the second level, and 10 points if they're at the top, if they're with the daimyo himself. That already is pretty good. But then the soldiers are going to multiply the score that you're getting based on the number of courtiers you have in the castle. So if I have, let's say, 3 soldiers and 5 courtiers, that is 3 times 5. That's 15 points I'm getting for my soldiers that are there. And there are soldier spaces. The 5 steel... you pay 5 steel to place a soldier.
Warriors,
the best warriors are worth double that. Each warrior is worth 2 times what the value of the courtiers there is. So there is we found, Trey, you and I have found that the people with the highest scores tend to correlate with the people that have gotten the most of their people out onto the board. Right.
What I've said is, like, as more we've played this, I think this is not one of those games where, like, hey, there's a farmer path or there's a warrior path or there's a courtier path. I think the high scoring path is you somehow manage to do all of these things.
The path is everybody out. You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here.
You cannot really neglect any of them ultimately. The trick is how do you kind of get them out there? Because as Tom's pointing out, like, you can have 20-something points of courtier scoring. And if you have the soldiers to support it and you're multiplying it, then you can have like another 30 points of soldiers that are multiplying the value of that you got in the courtiers there. It's hard to imagine having a successful game without doing that to a pretty large degree. I don't think that's a weakness. I think it's like these are the things you need to do.
No, and yet the last game I played of it, the entire first era, the first 3 of my 9 actions, I didn't place a single person on the board.
When you do it, it's different than what you end up with.
I solely gained resources, and I was like, I think I'm going to lose this game. I think I'm going to lose this game badly. But I had so many resources that every placement from that point forward in the game, I was placing not just into the base level, I was placing premium placements for everybody.
You were making multiple chains
9 points,
actions,
10 points, 6 points for every single placement. And even though I think you beat me by 1 point actually, but
I'm certain I did.
It was so painful. It was so painful.
It was a good game.
But it was a very good game. But I had, I think, 2 less people placed on the board, but I was within 1 point of you because I was doing premium placements and going that way. Which is, and the more we play this, I think the more that those sorts of trade-offs are going to be very, very crucial in terms of deciding how it goes.
It's going to be very marginal. I think a lot of these wins.
Yeah.
Let me talk about the dice one more time here, just because it does do the thing which I generally like, which is that the dice are 90% input randomness, which is at the beginning of each of these rounds, we roll the dice, we order them, we place them on the bridge. So it's that kind of classic input randomness situation of like, okay, here was the randomness in the setup. Now figure it out. Puzzle.
Yeah.
Figure it out.
Yep.
And that's I can always live with that. Here's the situation, blah blah blah. The one way in which this ends up being output randomness is actually in the farmer aspect.
Yeah.
In that, if like I did this last game I played to also, I was exploring the space a little bit, but I placed 2 farmers in the first round. I happened to place them at the same bridge. Probably a bad idea. It makes you a target.
Well, it says that the randomness is not the only factor in
Right.
in
People
what
have incentives to mess with you at that point rather than you investing where other people are. And that's definitely part of the game. But then we got to the second round, rolled the dice, and I think all of my 2 farmers were at the red bridge. And all of the dice in the
6, 6, 5.
So like when that happened, like those are really good values.
And the bridge that they were on, 4, 2, 1, 1.
So what Tom is saying is because those values are very high on the red bridge, it's a guarantee that those dice are going to be taken and that my farmers are not going to get a second kind of like production out of their placement from
Because the bridge
first
isn't
round.
going to be, there's nothing going to be left on that bridge.
So is that bad luck? Is that output randomness? It is.
Yeah.
It's pretty narrow.
Yeah.
I was intentionally taking a gamble and I lost it and I'm okay with that. Like I knew what I was getting into. I don't feel like it's one of those games where like, okay, I've been playing Here I Stand for 6 hours. Do I have an heir? I'm rolling a 6-sided die. I don't have a game. No game for me.
Here I Stand, one of the great
scarred.
GMT
Still
games
scarred.
of all time. Yeah, that's the way it is. And let's talk about the playtime. The playtime for a game that I can teach in 15 minutes, plays for about an hour, maybe an hour and a half. If you have some really AP Pro people,
first time.
maybe 90 minutes, 75, 80 minutes, maybe. That's a real sweet spot. That's a great thing. I don't have a lot of games in my collection that play and are that deep.
Sometimes this is the amount of game I want.
Yeah.
At various times. I'm not ready for a nucleum. You know,
when somebody is table flipped and left, and we realize we cannot continue this game, but Late Night Avalon is still an hour away.
Let's bring out White Castle.
White Castle is gonna be the game. You can probably hear it in our voices, but we love this game. This is a really fantastic little game.
Yeah, I'd say a couple of kind of like final thoughts for me. This is a good game for when you first play this and you kind of like you're playing it, you're struggling with it, you kind of like get into the second round. It's okay to say, you know what? Let's reset and start from the beginning again. Because there is that you have to kind of play it to learn it type of thing. Like, listen, in the end, if you just play it out, it's only going to be an hour. No biggie. But it's also fine. We're like, oh, I get it now. Yeah. I'm really ready to play it.
At the end of the first era, you've played 3 actions. You get it now. We can
give yourself permission to just reset and because you can kind of like, okay, one person knows how to play this game, 2 other people don't. But by the end of 3 actions, they actually they know enough now to actually play the game
and make smarter decisions because the decision space, the understanding of how the game works is fine, but understand the ramifications of everything that's before you takes a little bit to grok and is well worth it. I think last night you offered very kindly to do a restart. And they said no, and you just played 2 full games. You guys just went right through it and played 2 full games.
That was fun.
Yeah.
That was fun. And I think Chris was feeling like, no, I want to kind of like see how it ends to know how to do it again. And that's...
He's a game designer. I mean, so that's kind of where he comes from.
So totally respect that. I love this game. I guess this is not a negative. But I do think they're probably, like, when you talk about skill ceilings... Yeah, I think you will probably reach like there's a lot of skill in this game, but I think it's pretty attainable. I don't see 20 plays out of this game. I easily see 10 plus. Maybe over the years, maybe it is not a replayable game the way. Again, I'm going to relate to Agricola as I do often. Like Agricola is possibly the most replayable board game in the canon. This one. I'm still finding new things, but I do kind of suspect that it's not going to be a game you play 100 times.
No, I mean, listen, these designers also did Red Cathedral, as we mentioned. Mm-hmm. Another really good, simple, small box,
elegant
game that doesn't take up, that doesn't overstay its welcome very much. These guys are on a roll. They're absolutely.
Once you mention their names, I think these are Spanish designers, and they kind of abbreviate their names.
Yes. They've given themselves a little
Isra
monikers.
C and Shay S, and I think these are a pair of designers from Madrid
España.
who've done a number of games, and I think this is a good lesson. Also, I think that it looks like they've done like at least a dozen games between them, but they're now hitting their stride.
Yes.
Where I think they're kind of like at their peak, and they're churning out really. I think this and Red Cathedral are fantastic games. I can't wait to see what they do next.
100%. Just amazing design. I really enjoyed it. Every play so far I've enjoyed, and I think I will. Like you were saying, 10 plays or whatever. I think for me, this is more that kind of game where it's going to be in the rotation, not as the primary game of the night,
Right.
but as the what. I want to play.
It's 10:30. Play another game.
Well, or more like, what? I haven't played Bloody in forever, or
Right.
I haven't played Ra in forever.
Uh-huh.
Let's do a series of smaller games and do that night.
It's a smaller ask,
And by the way, I've been doing that for the last
and you've been
6
having
months.
fun.
We've been having a great time.
Fun is the result.
No, it's fantastic to every once in a while do that and play 3 1-hour games a night, and especially some of these old classics that are just amazing, really wonderful. This fits 100% into that plan, and I plan on doing a lot more of those.
Does this belong in the canon of our favorite elegant games?
Slightly too early to tell, but so far, yes, absolutely.
I could easily see it being there.
Yeah, I could easily see it being there. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go on our top 10 train
Quickly.
Top 10. Well, I mean, we're only 1 hour in, so we got time. But
Okay.
we can. But we're going to see and talk about our most elegant games and why we think they are so. And Trey, why don't you give us your number 10 elegant games?
Okay, I did not rank mine here.
Shall I do my number 10 while you rank?
Sure.
That's what I'm going to do. All right.
Okay, fine.
My number 10 is a game that, and by the way, you're going to hear games that you have heard from me before, because a lot of what I rave about on this podcast are elegant games. I mean, it's one of the things I really love. My number 10 is Pipeline. Pipeline came out in 2018, 2019, somewhere around there. And it is one of those games where I played it, and I think it was my number 2 game of the year that year. And it has just stayed up in my rankings ever since. The economic engine of the game, it's a very simple economic game in a lot of levels. It's get oil, build pipeline, make that oil into refined oil, sell that refined oil, right? That's the game. And the explanation, the teach of how the game goes is relatively straightforward. It's got a super simple place your worker on one of 6 spaces, really. That's it. It's got a polyomino pipeline formation system that is kind of cool, kind of fun, and a super simple mini game that doesn't really take away from other people's time, because other people can go while you're doing that. And as far as economic games go, it's got so few bells and whistles that it's really elegant and continues to be a blast for me. I absolutely love it.
It's a good example of something that can be heavier.
Yeah.
Have a higher weight and is still elegant.
It is. Yeah.
And I think a lot of the kind of the complexity in it can be like all those different pieces.
Yeah.
You have a lot of choices.
Yeah.
But the actual things you can do there's not a lot of different.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There are 8.
It's
there are 8
manageable.
actions.
It's a manageable teach.
There are 8 actions,
And then you have some very difficult decisions.
Yeah, and all of the actions are eminently explainable in a minute.
But yeah, like in our list, like that's if we were kind of going to look at our list here at the end there, I suspect that would be like your highest complexity of. I can't speak for your list, but like that's going to be up there for me.
It kind of is, yeah. It's pretty. The reason it's number 10 is that it's kind of on the edge of not quite being elegant enough,
right?
But I think as far as an economic game, that's crazy elegant.
You're right. I think I was thinking in terms of in making my list, just kind of like in terms of how we're defining our terms. I was thinking lower weight a little bit. Like if I were going that direction, then Gallerist would probably be on my list. But like to me, like that's a little too beefy.
The difference between the Gallerist teach and the Pipeline teach is vast. So I don't put them in the same category.
You think so? You think Gallerist is a lot harder?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a lot.
I remember struggling with Pipeline.
Really?
Yeah, I think you like it better than I do, but I still think it's really good.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
just so we're clear, I think it's really good. Okay, so here's in our difference of approaches. Trey's number 10 is Catan.
Settlers of Catan. Oh, is that what it is called?
It's just Catan now.
It's just Catan. What is that game? I'm not sure I'm familiar with it.
It's the game that most people play when they first get into the hobby.
Oh.
And it's not.
Yeah.
It's it does some pretty simple things. You don't have to learn a lot of different stuff. There's a reason why it's been such a huge game.
Yeah.
In the hobby.
Roll dice, get cards, turn those cards into buildings and roads.
Yep. But it's
pretty good.
I just ask Jesse. It requires a lot of skill to play that game well.
Yeah, I can't.
It's not just a dice checker.
I can't disagree. That is, it really is.
And maybe I want to make a little bit of defense of these games that kind of like the hobby looks down on sometimes. It's like Catan is really important. Catan is the thing that people play a lot of times, and they're like, now I'm ready for more.
Every time I play Catan, which is once every 5 years, I'm reminded of why it's a great game. I still enjoy it. I still want to make fun of it. Don't tell me I can't make fun of it, though, please. I have to make fun of it a little bit.
I'm not going to tell you can't make fun of it.
A little bit.
I might tell you it's a little misplaced.
I'm not making fun of the game. I'm making fun of the people that there's this whole world out there, and they have jiggled the doorknob and think they've found the they've found the gateway, but they haven't stepped into the gateway.
For all the deep nerdery that you and I have been through in our lives, there are other people who their experience is they got Catan as a couple.
Yep.
They have another couple over.
Yep.
And they play, and that's the beginning of their board game adventure.
Yeah.
Not everyone played Dungeons and Dragons and Diplomacy when they were 11.
I told my wife the other day that the next time we have a couple over and we're going to play Tichu, that there are these Japanese games that I have that are wonderful trick-taking games that they're going to love, and we'll play that too. And she's like, no.
No, because she wants just Tichu.
We are going to be playing Tichu, and we are going to
She
only
has
be
found
playing
her.
Tichu.
She's found her game.
She found her Huckleberry. That's all there is to it.
Tom, what is your
I
number
understand.
9?
My number 9 is Genoa. Traders of Genoa. Negotiation games are a really interesting beast. It is essentially where the game's rules are such that in any given turn, you are going to be able to wheel and deal with all the other players and try and trade this for that and get this for that and get compensation and all that sort of stuff in order to get what you want. And the person who does that best at the end of the game is going to have the most stuff and is going to win. There are Sidereal Confluence. There are other games of that ilk.
Right.
But Genoa is just so simple. At the heart of it, you can explain it in a minute. You're going to take a stack of these discs and you're going to be moving them, dropping one behind you each time you move them. And I think there are 5 all total. And so you're going to end up visiting 2 or 3 businesses or buildings on this map. And at those buildings, somebody is going to get the reward at those buildings. And you can only get the reward at one of those. So the negotiation that you make with other people, that I will pay you this if you go this way. At that building that I want you to go to, I'm going to get 2 things. I'm going to give you one of those things in order to get that. That's the entire game. Mm-hmm. The entire game. And the number of things and the value of those things is the only thing you have to learn in the game. It's really relatively simple to learn it. It's such a fun game on such a very simple premise. It can be taught in 5 minutes. And I would say within the first half an hour, you will understand completely how you think you want to value those things. And just great.
Right. This is one of those games where, right, it's wide open negotiation, which can be daunting. Yeah. It's hard to value things as a new player.
That doesn't get away from elegance.
Not
right?
necessarily. No.
Just like in White Castle, it really is the same situation where the rules are very simple. The way of looking at the board to see what is value
It's
tricky.
tougher. Yeah.
That's the thing that takes time.
Right. I like that game quite a bit. I also kind of think of it as like, oh, that's one of those games that Tom can take advantage of new people in. My number 9.
Trey, I still take advantage of you in that game.
I haven't played that game. Carcassonne, my number 9.
Oh, so good.
Well, elegant.
Yes.
Place a tile, place a meeple, draw a tile.
It even looks elegant. You're building this bucolic
creating a
French,
map.
This bucolic French countryside with castles and walls and farms. It's gorgeous.
And even so, that's simple. Like when you can just boil a turn down to, here's what you do on your turn. You're going to place a tile, you can place a meeple, you're going to draw a tile. That's your turn. That's and then when you're like, okay, well, you've got these meeples. What is the meeple? Well, that's really streamlined too. It's like, well, if it's on a road, it's a bandit. If it's on the field, it's farmer. If it's in the city, then I guess it's a warrior or something like
Castle,
that.
Yeah.
But like, it's just the one piece, and so it serves that multiple. Like that's incredibly elegant in terms of design. So yeah, is that a lower weight game? Yes, absolutely. Is there a lot of game in what's there? Again, like absolutely incredibly efficient design.
For non-gamers, Carcassonne is such a big hit. Such a big hit
for non-gamers.
Well, no. I mean, I don't mean that in a negative way at all. No. I still think it's a great game.
If you played Carcassonne, you're a gamer.
Yeah, I've played it.
It's a big tent, Tom.
I'm just saying that I would bring like where my mother lives. The old people there are doing jigsaw puzzles. If I taught them Carcassonne, I think they would play it every day because it's just a jigsaw puzzle. It's just you're making a picture, and in addition to making a picture, you're playing a little game.
That's right.
It.
And whether you're playing well or not is kind of like beside the point.
Yeah,
you're still doing the thing.
Yeah, we talked about this before that there are some games where just the act of playing the game, if you took score out of it completely,
right.
The act of playing the game is itself enjoyable. We talked about that about Agricola, right? At the end of the game, I have this beautiful little farm where I had nothing before, and it's kind of cute. And they got my animals in this little pen,
you've got your dollhouse at the end. Why don't I do my number 8 because it falls into that category too? My number 8 is Ticket to Ride. So, like, obviously, a lot of what I'm calling what we might call gateway games, make the Elegance list, right? Like, I don't think that's a coincidence, but that's another example of that was a game I think we could play it with my niece when she was 5 or 6.
Yeah,
like was she putting up a competitive score? No. Was she able to draw her cards, collect sets, and connect between cities so that she had a network? Yes. Was it easy to explain? Yes. Are the finer elements of strategy obvious at the beginning? No.
Yeah.
Can it be played quite competitively? Yes. So
this is really interesting. You and I have come up with a very different elegant list. Like your first 3 elegants were Carcassonne, Catan, and Ticket to Ride.
These are classics.
And mine are Pipeline, Genoa, and my number 8 is Hansa Teutonica.
Uh-huh.
Hansa Teutonica is I could teach that game in 5 minutes. It is such a simple game.
I don't believe you cannot teach that in 5 minutes.
Basically.
That's an exaggeration.
Well, okay.
Complete exaggeration.
Maybe 15, but
sure.
15 at most. Because everything that the game does,
the depths of that game are not obvious right at the beginning.
We're not talking about depth. We're talking about rule set.
Yep.
We're talking about rule set. You can put 2 cubes out. You can take somebody's cube off, right, and then that happens. You can score the route that you have completed. That's basically it. And everything else about the game are the 5 little areas that you have on your player mat, right? There's this area, and this is what this does, and this is what this does, that, and that's it. Yeah, that's the entire game, and yet the game space is so rich. There's so much going on there. It is absolutely elegant.
That is still one of those games where, like, I almost feel like I need to teach when I return to it, though. I agree it's elegant. At the same time, I'm thinking about, like, it was such a pioneer in that it felt like it was, if it wasn't the first, it was one of the first of the, hey, you have your own personal tableau, and as you remove wooden pieces, you're revealing the kind of like the engine.
Unlocking,
you're unlocking, and so I can see the thing I do. It also was pretty language independent. Like there was no language in that one, right?
Almost none. Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm also even now when I'm thinking about playing it, it's like, okay, like what's the bag again? Like you have these different actions on your player board, and it's like, what does the bag actually restrict?
The
Just
bag
like
is
the number.
how many pieces you can recover.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
You have these are the available pieces, and these are the reserves.
Yeah.
Right.
Which this is why it's like rightly put at a higher level of complexity. Is it still elegant? Yes.
Super elegant.
Yep.
Yeah. What is your number 7, Trey?
My number 7. All right, so this is a game I find that I like better than most people, but I thought it was very elegant, and again, was Coimbra.
Yeah,
like that.
Yeah,
that is.
Now you're in my neck of the woods where it's
like, not that heavy, but we're getting more into like this should not be your first. Your first game, but I felt like that game was very streamlined, and you kind of like fairly easy to teach, harder to master. The way you start to chain things together and do connections.
Here are the dice. What are you going to do with the die?
I mean, again, I guess I'm back to dice here. Like we're going to roll the dice, and then we're going to make lemonade from the lemons of the die rolls or whatever. Where you have that moment, which I always enjoy, of like you roll the dice. Here's the situation. Study it.
Yeah.
And then you make your plans. You're not going to be able to keep your plans, but you made your plans and you see opportunities and then you kind of pursue them. And Coimbra really, really worked for me in that level. Again, a sequencing thing.
Yeah.
When do I I really need that card, but I can probably wait. I can probably wait to get that card, because it's not that good for other people. So I can wait. So I can wait. Like that type of decision making, I often enjoy. Like, everybody's going to want that thing.
Right.
So that's got to be my first move, even though this other card's going to be more valuable to me. But I'm probably going to get that on my second or third move. That type of thing.
Yep. My number 7 is the only designer that is on my list twice. I think that the older designers, old school guys, those are the ones that have an affinity for elegant games. I think to ride Alan Moon. I think Alan Moon is an elegant game designer. I think all of his designs are something
certainly something he strives for in his designs. Right?
Yeah, very simple concept, and yet the gameplay that comes out of that can be very, very rich.
Yep.
And amazing. And for me, the king of this is Reiner Knizia. I think Reiner Knizia is the goat of the elegant game, and my number 7 is Samurai, one of the absolute most elegant games that he's ever put together. It is a game that is the map of Japan. It's gorgeous. If you get the old design of the game, it is absolutely gorgeous. You have got everybody has an identical tile set that they turn face down. And on your turn, you're going to draw and make sure that you always have, I think, 5 tiles behind your screen. And you get to choose which one to play. And there are rewards. On the city of Edo, which is now Tokyo, there is one of each kind of reward. And the rewards are the rice box, which is the farmers, the hi-hat, which is the military, and the Buddha, which is the religious influence. And in classic Reiner Knizia style, when a area is surrounded, then you're going to count up the amount of influence for each type of reward that is there. And whoever has the highest amount of influence of that type gets that reward. And at the end of the game, you're going to see who has the most hi-hats. Okay, you have the most hi-hats? Good, you are safe. Who has the most Buddhas? You? Okay, you're safe. Who has the most rice boxes? You're safe. Who got none of the most of any of them? You are out of the game, sir. You are out of the game. Okay, now everybody else, discard the thing that you have the most of. Your score is what is the rest.
You're learning a lot about Tom of what appeals to him.
Oh, it's so good. It's so good. It's like such a. I mean, he's a mathematician. He's got a PhD in math, and you can see it in the design. And yet, the design is the design of an artist. Man, this is a great thinking person's tile laying game where you're just trying to figure out how do I get the most. Who got? What am I in competition for? What am I in competition against? And how do I win it? If you've never played Samurai, you absolutely must. It is going to be played right alongside White Castle because they're both 1 hour. They're both 1 hour thinky genius games that have a very similar
Japan theme
that fit the theme exactly.
A game that made my honorable mention with Tigris and Euphrates.
Yep.
Reiner Knizia. I'm going to jump to my number 5 though, and then come back to my number 6 later because my number 5 is Medici.
Oh, okay.
Also Reiner Knizia.
Yeah.
Kind of you're just collecting cubes.
That's it.
But incredibly rich and quick, and again, like plays maybe even faster than the White Castle.
Yeah.
But very elegant and like surprisingly deep when you play it with humans.
Yes.
Later on. So just in that theme of like, is Reiner Knizia kind of really like the poster child for elegance in design? Like,
he's the GOAT.
Yeah.
He's the GOAT.
Alan Moon's kind of doing that too, but Knizia has just made so many more games.
Yeah.
It's crazy amount of games.
Well, and I think Alan Moon's, I think 10 days, his 10 day series, I think his Ticket to Ride series, hugely popular, but they're also simpler games. Reiner designs games that are simple and yet they're deeper. I think they're just a deeper play experience in general.
So now jumping back to my number 6, Keyflower.
Oh, kind of. I mean, yes, I agree. It is a very elegant game, but it is on the heavy side of elegance because there is actually a lot going on in the sense that there is as you get tiles into your space, how you move things, how you move resources around and stuff like that. There's a couple layers to understanding how to play that.
You think that's more complex than Pipeline?
Oh yeah.
Oh, okay. I don't.
Oh, okay.
But I admit, like the first time you see Keyflower, it's visually confusing. Like there's a lot on the tiles, and some of the iconography feels like could have been better.
Yeah, well, it's got a style that is at odds with the way it plays.
A little bit, yeah.
Which is interesting. It looks like you're playing.
I always thought it should have been a more successful. Like it's been successful, and there've been a lot of obviously different variations. But like I still think it could have even been better with a better art style.
Keyflower looks like you're playing the Village of the Happy Nice People. And instead, what you're playing is a game called Razor Blades in the Confessional. That's you're just cutting people up.
That should be a positive for you, Tom.
It is. I love that. I love that game. The only thing I don't like about that game is how good Paul used to be at it. But now we
figured him out. Yeah,
we figured him out.
We know
so now it's okay.
Yeah. You just can't let him meeple engine it to the end of time.
My number 6 is a very heavy game that nonetheless is super elegant. Diplomacy.
Yeah, sure.
Diplomacy, like the rules of diplomacy are a book that is smaller than the book for White Castle.
Right. It's like 4 pages.
It is super simple.
I mean, it's a single page folded.
Basically, yeah, exactly. All the rules fit in there.
So. Yeah.
And yet the play of that game is absolutely diabolical. Just diabolical. On each you start with 3 or 4 units on a map.
Yep.
You can order a unit to move from one space to an adjacent space. You can order a unit to support a move to another space or another space. And if you're a naval unit, you can convoy a unit, transporting it across your space and into the next space. I just explained all the rules, pretty much all of the rules of diplomacy. And yet within that, the number of friendships that have been destroyed by that simple rule set is astonishing. It is a crazy elegant.
It's true. I had not thought of that at all because it can be just so toxic to your friend group when I think of like nice elegance games I can recommend, they're elegant. I'm not going to recommend diplomacy.
Let me be clear. We're at ep 198. Is that what we're doing now?
Oh, our podcast? Yeah.
Yeah. We're coming up to 200. I guarantee you at 200 this group has never played diplomacy. We're playing diplomacy. We have to play diplomacy. It is.
You're going to tie Ben down and force him to play the games we played in the 70s?
I'm dying to see what Ben does with diplomacy because I think he's going to go. I think he's going to go nuts. I think he's going to go off the rails a little bit.
I'll just point him your direction.
Oh, it's going to be awesome. I'm really look. It is a market. We should be hanging our heads in shame that we've done 200 episodes of a podcast about board games, and the majority of us have never played diplomacy. Now, Trey, you and I, we're both Los Angeles champions of diplomacy.
Okay. I think there's very good reasons that we actually don't play diplomacy now. It can hurt friendships. It does take all day. The juice is not worth the squeeze.
The juice is totally worth the squeeze.
The juice is not worth the squeeze.
The juice is so worth the squeeze.
It's very good reasons we don't
Until
play
you've drank this juice, you have no idea how good it is.
I think if you want people to check that box so that you can complete their board game education, I can understand that.
100%. And I think we just all take Molly.
All right, I've done my 5. And have you done your 5?
I've done my first 5, yes.
All right, why don't you do your number 4?
My number down to my number 5 now.
Okay,
1,
do your
2,
number 5.
3, 4, 5. My number 5 is El Grande. El Grande, super, super classic. It's on your list as well?
It's on my
honorable mention.
Honorable mention.
Yeah. I mean, the classic worker placement, not worker placement, the area control game. I have a number of cubes. I am going to pick an action out of 5 things I can do, and I'm going to put a certain number of cubes onto the board and try to get the maximum number of points by dominating various regions. That's pretty much all the game is, and yet the way the game plays is astonishing. I've talked about it so many times. I don't need to go on and on about it, but El Grande is one of the most elegant games I've ever played. Absolutely amazing.
And I always get confused with El Grande. Like we kind of played the revised version with like the card system.
Oh, that's one of the expansions.
Yeah.
One of the early expansions is a card system, which itself is incredibly elegant in its own way. Where instead of people drawing from a common pool of actions, of which there are 5. You are choosing a hand. You have like 100 cards. And
that is much more complex.
And you're choosing what 13 cards you're going to be able to use in this particular game.
That's a cool game. I like that game.
Also amazing.
I'm not sure that's elegant. It's adding complexity to a very good base game.
Which, by the way, is a great thing about elegant games is that you can add on and with ease and make a game very, very deep, very quickly because the base rule set is so easy to understand.
All right, my number 4 is the most elegant splatter bus.
Oh, you think roads? You think that's
yeah?
Bus?
It's much easier to. I'm not saying it's easier to be good at bus, but it's much easier to teach. There's a lot going on in roads and boats. You got a lot of formulas. You got a whole sheet you hand to people to kind of understand what
my
you're
number
doing.
4 is roads and boats.
Okay. Okay.
So we got a splatter here.
No, I think this is pretty illustrative. This is illustrative.
We're going to have a splatter off. Okay? In roads and boats, you start with a goose, a donkey, and 2 boards. Or 4 boards. That's it. Here is a menu. And this shows all of the things that you can build in the game. Mm-hmm. Everything. Okay?
Here are your formulas.
Would you like to build a sawmill so you can get more wood and make more boards? Oh, no problem. Spend 2 of your boards and build that right there. Okay? Take the donkey and go 1 more space and you can build a quarry so you can start getting rocks. So you can build rock things. Everything in the game is on the menu sheet.
How many items are there on the menu sheet?
I don't know, like
20, 30 different items on the menu sheet?
Maybe 20. But this is what this is, this is what this does, and this costs a rock and 2 boards. And then you build that. That's all it is. That's all it is. The game is...
but that's not elegant.
That is incredibly
That is not
elegant. It doesn't require any explanation. If you want to see what you could do any of these things. It is the most stripped down logistics game in history. It is,
and that's before you even get into and then someone can come and take your goose. They can take your donkey. They can use your wood shop, whatever,
These guys are Dutch, okay? Property is theft. It's not your duck. It's not your donkey, okay? I guess it's your donkey, but it's not your building. Okay? Property is theft. The only thing you own are the transportation devices that you build.
I don't think that game is Baroque, but I think that there's a lot of, I think this is actually good for me to push back on. The menu, like you say, where you're like, here's 20 different things you can do. Here's some different formulas of things you can make. And then you start to see if I do the lumberyard, then that's going to do a thing so I can later on build a dock. And, there's some kind of chaining of here's the different things. To me, that's not elegance.
That is elegance. It's explore the space, man. Here you go. I spent 5 minutes.
Makes sense of 20 different formulas.
I've spent 5 minutes telling you all of all of the rules of the game. Here's a list of things you can do. Go and make your little paradise.
Bus, on the other hand,
yes,
is
time traveling,
so streamlined that it's almost abstract.
yeah.
And in this game, we're kind of like we're making bus routes. Your high score, it may very well be in the single digits.
4.
Because points in the game are just like passengers delivered in the end or something like that. It's like for the again, like if this is a numerator denominator to create a ratio, the amount of rule there is so minimal, but then incredibly deep, complicated, brutal decision space.
Yeah,
but at no point are you presented with like a menu of, I can build a travel agency in this block.
No, but in order to start play, you have to spend twice as much time explaining how the game works in Bus than you do in Roads and Boats. I agree that playing Bus, once you've been explained the rules of the game, you kind of get it until emergent play comes.
And so, to envision Roads and Boats, for people that don't know what you're talking about, you also, to play Roads and Boats, you have a map that you have a laminate that you have to spread out and like weigh down.
Yeah, I do that. Yeah. I mean, the game comes with a very flimsy little thing that lays.
It's a big box.
It's just to draw the roads. Grab a marker and draw your road that you just built. Okay.
Agree to disagree.
And then place a boat down. That's all it is.
You will not admit that Bus is more elegant than Roads and Boats.
From my definition, no. It's actually not. But I do think it is a very elegant game. I think they're both elegant.
Okay,
but you
enough.
said more elegant. Okay, so if you're going to get into a measuring contest, I got to say what I got to say. All right,
I'm glad this is a podcast, Tom.
That was our number 4s.
Okay, my number 3.
Yes,
Taj Mahal.
Rainer Knizia.
Another right. Okay, so back to the well.
You have 2 Rainer Knizias. Yeah, right. And Rainer Knizia, that's on the heavier side of Rainer designs, or the more,
but still super manageable.
100%.
I feel like I played that game a lot with you. You're really good at it.
I love it.
I still love to play it every time. Yeah. It's like, I'm probably not going to win. Tom just sees through the seams of this game in a way that I don't. But
there's a matrix to see.
There is a matrix to see, but it's still like every bit of that game fits within a kind of like very digestible envelope.
Yeah.
Where I'm never overwhelmed. Like I may be overwhelmed with like, I didn't think about that. I should have done that. And now I'm not making that connection. Tom's going to win type of thing. But like in the actual gameplay, it's all very manageable and I'm enjoying the process. So sometimes like in this case, Elegance it's in a certain digestible package that has a lot of meat for the teach. And also like that game can play pretty quick. Like you can play that game in under 90 minutes easily.
Yeah. About 90 minutes I think is dead on right for the length in general.
And like we're always pushing Taj Mahal as like a game that doesn't quite get its due.
Yeah. No, it's criminally underrepresented and it's an amazing
it's classic.
Game. Yeah, it really is. My number 3 is Friedrich. Heavy game.
Yeah.
Heavy game.
Mm-hmm.
All of the rules of that game are on a playing card. Not 2 sides of a playing card. One side of a playing card has there's not a single word written on it. It is 4 things, and it shows you pictographically what those 4 things are.
Uh-huh.
And the entire game is there. That's it. That's everything about the game. The only thing I have to explain after that is the timing mechanism of the game, which is we'll be flipping over a card every turn, and eventually bad things can start to happen, and the war will start to constrict. But a war game that is that deep, that is played solely with essentially decks of playing cards, is essentially the way that conflicts are resolved in that game. And all of the rules of it are on a single playing card. How do you get more elegant than that?
I think the rules are very elegant. I think when you look at the map, that's a deeply complex map with a lot of corners, with a lot of like angles.
Yeah.
And I think like people, I know enough about that game to know that like when it is played competitively, like there's a lot of map there, but competitive play is going to come down to there are some critical points.
These choke points.
There are some choke points that play kind of centers on when you actually do it.
In particular, there are the regions that are the most highly contested are the ones on the edges of the rectangles.
That's a weighty game.
And yet crazy. Like heavy weight does not preclude elegance, and that's kind of my whole. That I think that's my list. Is kind of these are games that are deep and kind of heavy, and yet at the end of the day, really elegant. The design is so simple, and yet the way the game plays out is incredibly complex.
Yeah, I think of our friend Mike. Mike craves, I think, almost like he is not afraid to play highly complex games.
No, he's not.
He really craves them. I'm sometimes intimidated by the more complex games, and so sometimes I think I would rather like master the masterable. Whereas I think, like, just as an example, I think like Mike is fine, like wading into the deeper waters and drowning.
He talked to Here I Stand yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
He was talking about that.
Yeah,
hasn't played it yet.
Wants to play it. Dying to play it. Right. Yeah. I'm sure. Yep. Yeah. Wants to learn it. Wants to play it. You know,
I love it.
But I'm just kind of like identifying, like maybe that's again an old manness thing of like I want maybe sometimes I want something a little more manageable that I can get under the skin of. Whereas, like I look at Friedrich and I'm like, oh man, that's going to be an investment.
Well, it's going to take a little time, and it's a war game. You know, we don't play a lot of war games.
No, we don't. Yeah,
a war game is a very specific experience, and even though that war game is very abstracted in comparison to a lot of war games, and there's not a die to be seen anywhere, it gives you a war game experience, and a war game experience sometimes isn't going to feel the best. Mm-hmm. It's brutal.
We're to our top two.
Top two. Here we go. What's your number two?
Age of Steam.
Age of Steam. Yeah.
Is it on your list? No.
No, it is not on my list because to me it's not quite elegant enough, but it is. It 100% is. Let's put this way.
You wish you had it on your list.
It's on my honorable mention. There's no question about it.
It's on your Adderall mention?
Honorable mention.
I like the first list.
It'll be on that one too.
Age of Steam, very deep game, pretty simple rule set. A lot of the variation is in the maps. In the different scenarios you play, there's definitely a big learning curve on that game where your first couple games might be pretty rough because it is a brutal economic engine. But the things it's actually asking you to do are pretty simple rule set that we've got.
Chairs to get money, spend that money to bid for turn order and picking what special little benefit you're going to have this
deliver
round.
Goods.
Late track.
Compete to deliver goods.
Yeah. I would say that, for me, when you get into the weeds of things like goods delivery and this is the engineer and the engineer does this. This is production and production does this.
Oh, yeah. Like the actual like little actions you get, the specialty actions, like that's not the most elegant.
It takes time to get through that and to understand what that is. So that's
fair.
That's where I hit the
that's fair. Those are the little like, hey, you're gonna get a card, and we're gonna play with like these 7 cards or something like that.
Well, we use cards, but
it's an action space. Like, yeah, right. That is not the most elegant thing. It's still pretty essential.
It's amazing.
It's very rich.
It's amazing.
It's like you're gonna do one. Maybe that's elegant. Is like you're gonna get one of these.
Correct.
As part of your bid.
Yeah.
That's elegant.
It is. It is very elegant.
But it's like, again, like that is not text independent. Like you need text there, I think. Like I guess you could have icons for what the thing does, but then you'd have to consult a rule book for like, what does the engine mean? Oh, you've increased your locomotive by 1,
Right.
All right. Yeah. Moving on. Your number 2.
My number 2. If people are playing the Tom Recommends Games drinking game, be ready to drink right now. Santiago.
Yeah.
Is
a good one.
I mean, it's great.
I'm writing it down. I'm writing it down.
It is crazy.
Good example.
Simple. It is a crazy simple game. You've got a certain number of escudos. You have a certain number of money. You've got one little pipe that you can lay down when you want to, and all you're trying to do is plant fields that are going to prosper and be rich.
You do this love like the driest themes, literally. Here.
Oh, it is so.
Here you're gonna dig your ditch. Are you going to irrigate your fields? This is where Tom wants to play board games.
And it's so mean. It's so mean. I mean, this game has there have been so many screaming arguments between people about you said you were going to do that. You got to do that. I'm going to go a different way. You son of a, right? It really has such heightened emotion for a very simple subsistence farming.
So this is like the third game on your list where like being able to manipulate and deceive a fellow player is part of the game that you've chosen.
Well, there's no rule complexity to that. that is elegance in and of itself.
I said what I said.
That is the game. That is my number 2. What is your number 1?
My number 1 is a top 5 game for me, Concordia.
Yeah. Concordia is on my also ran list because it is very, very elegant for the play experience that it gives you, for sure.
Yeah, and I do kind of like put it a little bit in the like it's a longer game than White Castle by a long shot. When you play it with people that know what they're doing, it can kind of clip along. I think it's also one of those games where I probably don't want to play it 100 times. Where again, like feel like there's probably a ceiling on it. Where like ultimately, like the questions it's asking are pretty attainable through multiple plays, which I think is the case with the White Castle. But still, what a great game. As fish, like what do you do on your turn? You play a card. You know, you have a can of cards. You just choose one of the cards you play, and then you do the thing, and then a lot of those cards trigger other things for other people. But it has a fairly simple gameplay with very rich environment that kind of emerges from that. And I think it's one of those kind of classics, top 20 game for me, top 5 game for me.
Yeah. And my number 1 is the second Reiner Knizia game I'm going to mention, and it's Modern Art. Modern Art is one of those games where it rarely makes it to the table, and yet every time it makes it to the table, everybody's experience is the same. Like, why don't we play this game more? This is crazy good.
Yeah.
And could not be simpler. You're being dealt out a hand of works of art. You're going to put those art up for auction. You're going to buy some. You're going to sell some. And each round, whatever sells the most.
You're going to manipulate your fellow players. That's number 4.
It is. Yes.
You're going to negotiate.
Yes.
You're going to twist arms. You're going to threaten.
There are 4 types of auctions, and the card says what type of auction it's going to be. Right? It's the open bidding, once a round, fixed price, or double auction where you're going to auction to. That's all the game is. And yet it is such a wonderful experience, such a rich design. It's so simple.
So kind of like looking back at the list here, Knizia was like easily the most appearing in our kind of elegant discussion. I think we also talked about Alan Moon as kind of a designer. I may want to circle back to Matt Gertz with Concordia. Like his other games are pretty elegant too.
Well, I mean, Imperial
Navigador.
Well, Imperial uses diplomacy, the diplomacy map
essentially,
and essentially the diplomacy rule set for how the war is. It adds another layer on top of the super simple diplomacy rules to make a different game. Is essentially what he's done. So yeah, I think that fits absolutely.
And these are just some of my favorite designers.
Yeah.
Interesting. Like I think I did.
Rondel can be very elegant, and he does a lot of Rondel stuff.
I love Uwe Rosenberg, but I think part of the things I enjoy about his games are that they do have that extra bit of. They're not elegant because, here's 400 different cards you're going to play with in this game sometimes, so like they do have these little detail-y things that you have to pay attention to that do not make them the most elegant.
I have a Uwe Rosenberg honorable mention.
Go for it.
Bonanza.
Oh yeah, sure.
The first hit he ever had. You're going to be dealt a hand of bean cards. The rule is you cannot rearrange your hand. The order they're in is the order they're in, and you can plant a maximum of 2 bean fields until you buy a third, and they only pay out if you add enough.
You can't change the order of your hand.
Can't change the order of your hand, and when it comes to your turn, the first card you have in your hand you must play. If it does not match one of the 2 fields that you have in front of you, you got to rip up one of those fields. And those fields pay off when you get a lot of cards on that field, not when you have 1 or 2 cards on that field. Crazy elegant.
I do think it's interesting you see with Uwe Rosenberg is he clearly engages in 2 different design paths, which is that he's got his big box games, which are kind of his, feature length.
And then he's got patchwork and
and then he's got these other kind of smaller games. A lot of times with like mechanisms that have emerged when he's pursuing some bigger game, he'll say, okay, well, what's oh, hey, I developed this cool, rondel for Aura and Labora. Well, let me explore it on a simpler level on Glass Road, which is actually kind of like in the middle more. But, he has some stuff that is definitely, he's trying to be in a lighter, elegant space a lot of times too. And I think a lot of those games have done pretty well, like Patchwork.
Oh, those are...
Bonanza. I mean, there's a bunch. He puts out a lot of games that I end up not playing.
It's a good business decision.
Yeah.
Let's put it that way, for sure.
Elegant is more where the money's at, I think.
It can be, yeah.
It's not where the BGG ratings are, but, it is where the sales are a lot of times.
That's why it takes brave souls like you and me to shine a light.
I think this is my favorite game. White Castle is my favorite game of 2023 so far. But as we know, it is still October.
Yes.
So we still have plenty of year left here. Like it tends to be pretty weighted towards the end of the year a lot of times.
You're going to have to play Nucleum before you can really say that. So
I have played half a game.
No, you have to play an actual full game of Nucleum and see what it's about because it's
not elegant as far as I can see.
But. No, it's not. It's not elegant. It's not exactly inelegant either. It's not a very complicated game. It doesn't have too many moving parts to it. I'm a big fan.
Okay,
we will be looking at getting.
This wasn't the hey we argue about what's the best game of 2023 yet though.
Oh, okay, so we won't say that then. We'll say that.
I'm just saying so far for me.
Yeah,
speaking for me.
Yeah, look, I'm a more positive person and stuff like that. So maybe that's why I have an invite to play Evacuation and you don't. You don't know. We'll see.
I'm the crusty old man, folks.
You know,
got it.
Like a little bit. Okay.
I think we need to finish the podcast now.
All right, fine. I
need to cry.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're almost at our 200th episode. Can't believe it. It's coming up. I think it'll be in a couple episodes. We're coming up.
If you see us at BGG-Con, please come up and say hi.
Yes. We
love that.
We would love for you to say hi.
Open invitation.
Absolutely. Open invitation. Yeah. Just
because I know like things are about to get really busy here in November. So like I'm not sure I'm going to be back on the podcast before we're back.
I'm gone for the second week, like the 5th to the 10th. I'm away that whole week.
Yeah.
Then the next week we're away at BGG.
That's what I'm saying.
And then the next week is Thanksgiving.
Yep.
So
yep.
We may not actually we may be light on the episodes in the next month, ladies and gentlemen. We should let you know there's a good chance that the 200th episode won't happen until December, possibly.
What?
So you may have a little wait. We will see.
Okay.
But hey, tell us what you think. Talk to us on Discord. Talk to us on our Facebook group. And you've been listening to Game Brain, produced and edited by Matthew Robinson, Tom Donnelly, Trey Alsop, and Ben Mandelker. Special thanks to Daedalus for our incredible music. More on Daedalus at GameBrainPod.com and Edamar Peleg for our incredible graphics. You can reach us at email at contact@GameBrainPod.com or on Twitter at GameBrain_pod, or as it now is called, X. Thanks for listening, and go play some games with friends.
We'll go make some friends with games?
Yeah, that'd be good.
For a change.